I am Zoe with Paranormal Extraction, and this is my show. I wanted to introduce today Marc Coppell. He is a documentary
creator,
filmmaker, and I just wanted to say we're going to be talking about Sasquatch today and UFOs. I am so excited. I've talked to Marc prior to this, and he also has audio of this, and I've listened to it. So he's also from New Zealand. Oh my God. Okay, here we go. Hi, Marc. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thanks, Zoe.
Okay, so you're in New Zealand now.
Yes, I used to live over in your country for about 20 years.
Okay.
So I went to school over there, university over in America too.
Wow, okay, so right now you're doing documentary filmmaking, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Sasquatch and UFOs. Righto, right?
Yes, well that's one of the main things that have happened recently.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the Sasquatch experience that you have, because I find it absolutely fascinating, and plus I agree with you on several points that you're going to bring up.
Well, basically, as you know, I've had many paranormal experiences growing up. I had a major UFO sighting, like close to the ground, in early 2013, outside of Rachel, Nevada. Now, very early of that year, this launched me into ufology. Actually, I was prospecting at the time, and I decided that I'm going to head to Skinwalker Ranch because I wanted answers for what I saw. I had basically it was like something out of X-Files. Basically involved this silver Mercury-like tic-tac UFO that flew through these mountains outside of Nelson, Nevada, and I was totally blown away. It was during the day. I was hyperventilating. I was swearing, and I couldn't even prospect. I just had this impression to pull over in this certain area, and I see this silver oblong craft that had no wings, no form, no obvious forms of propulsion. And it seemed to land. Now, I did the Travis Walton. I tried to find where it landed. Now, yeah.
You had to go to actually run to the craft and get lifted up, right?
Well, I wanted answers. I mean, it's like I took a risk of getting radiation burns, but anyway, I guess it's a good thing I didn't find it.
Oh, exactly, because that does happen to people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically it was very highly reflective, and so I imagine when this thing goes down to the ground, it would pick up everything around it, including the mountains, all the artifacts around it. So it would actually have natural camouflage. But anyway, that's not where that stopped. As I made my way out back to the car, I was freaked out. There was a car blocking this entrance to this wild area, and whoever it was driving this car, they may have had something to do with whatever I saw, because it pulled out, and it pulled up by my car. These two tall, strange individuals got out of the car. Now, I wasn't in my car, I was watching. I was wearing desert camouflage, and they both approached my parked car and started looking in my windows like, "Who are you?" And I was like, I didn't know who. They didn't look American. They were tall, thin. They were wearing tan outfits, hats with neck coverings, seemingly identically dressed. Then they got in their car and drove down to Nelson, Nevada, which was very close by. Now, I was so freaked out. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if they had something to do with but the timing was just very strange. This is a remote area, has a bit of a gold mining history there. And so that same year, I decided, look, I got into ufology. I was basically forced into it. As I mentioned earlier, I had this impression to pull over. I nearly had an accident in this area, so I'm quite sensitive. So anyway, I made my way to Skinwalker Ranch later that year, 2013, when Robert Bigelow still owned the property. That is the Area 51 on the Paranormal, Skinwalker Ranch. I'm sure many, if not most of your fans have heard of Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I have a paranormal investigation background anyway, so I have been part of a paranormal team. I already had my own gear, all my cameras, my infrared night vision cameras, all that kind of stuff. So I took all my gear and went to the outskirts of Skinwalker Ranch. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. I went there for UFOs. I thought, man, I couldn't believe what I saw. I thought, well, I'll try my luck. I'll see what happens over at Skinwalker Ranch. So I went with my then girlfriend, went up to the front gate of Skinwalker Ranch. At that point, basically it had these concrete barriers that kind of protected the front entrance to the ranch. And of course, 24/7 security there.
Well, yeah.
Former military.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and go on. So you were in front of Skinwalker Ranch. There's no way actually anyone can get in there. So what were you doing there? Did anything happen when you were there?
Well, yes. Particularly at night time is when things happened. I actually snuck up. I parked on the front gate. I didn't actually go onto the property. Now, yes, there's portals being seen as Bigfoot-like creatures, poltergeist, a variety of UFOs, cryptids. Basically, things happen in that area. I interviewed one of the Ute tribe members, well, actually a couple of them, about what goes on in that area. There's UFO sightings, there's Bigfoot-like creatures. So it's not just the property itself. It does actually affect the surrounding area, including neighbouring farms as well. Now, the first night that I was there, I had all my cameras set up. It was very windy. It was storms were coming over, and what happened is these strange light anomalies, plasma-like light anomalies, flew right up to me and did a 90-degree turn right in front of my face, going against a gusty wind. Now, the wind was so strong it was shaking my car, and so any fireflies, anything like no insects going to be able to fly in those really gusty conditions.
Okay.
Whatever these anomalies were that were flying up to me, the wind had absolutely no effect on them whatsoever. And I was wearing a point of view camera, and it would capture these anomalies fly right up to my face, and they just zoom right past. It happened very quickly, so I didn't know. I saw the light, but I didn't know exactly what they were. And then I saw these. I captured on camera these very strange plasma-like formations. One's kind of like a face, what I call a pumpkin anomaly. It looks like a pumpkin, a Halloween pumpkin. Basically appeared in this on the South Vantage Point is what it's known as, that particular location where people go to view the outskirts of the ranch. Now, you're pretty far away from the ranch. You're not like bordering it. Now, what happened on the second night, we went up to UFO Hill there, which is over on the western side of the property, and I was up on UFO Hill. It's pitch black, all dark there. I had all my cameras set up there, thinking, well, I'm hoping to get a UFO on camera. I was filming the stars and the skies above Skinwalker Ranch. And I'd pick up these laser beams, looked like laser beams, coming up from the ranch property, shooting straight up into the sky. Now, what happened? We were up on this elevated hill. There's quite a drop below us, and we were there incognito. No one could see us. It was very dark. I heard these very strange, like animal sounds, and I didn't know what they were. But what happened is, it seemed like a large rock had been thrown by us it hit the ground like an explosion. At first I thought one of my battery packs or one of my cameras had exploded. It was that loud and shocking. And I didn't know at the time, but a rock had been thrown right at us.
Wow.
And it landed right next to. Now that's typical. Now at that point in time, I was not proactively into Bigfoot, to be honest. I wasn't.
Was this like a big giant rock that a person couldn't throw, or small that a person could throw?
Well, if you can imagine something that makes the sound of an explosion is a pretty big rock. I wouldn't. Definitely not a pebble.
Okay.
I mean, not a boulder, but definitely not a pebble.
Okay.
It was quite shocking.
All right.
And whoever or whatever threw that rock at us or by us had a lot of strength. Now, if you ever remember going to gym class and throwing shot puts, those, steel balls, that are used in the Olympics.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Those are bloody heavy, aren't they? I mean,
yeah.
So whatever this was, had the strength to throw this all the way up, over 100 feet, well over 100 feet up onto our elevated position.
Wow.
From whatever point. Now I had all my cameras. Anyone sneaking around with infrared, my cameras would have picked them up.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead. Okay, so I'm just going to say that so this big rock actually got thrown at you, which kind of got you all messed up about the UFO stuff, because you're kind of thinking, well, what the heck is this thing being thrown at me? So how did you come to the conclusion then that it was a Sasquatch, or were you just like, what the hell is up there?
It was a big question mark to me. As I say, at that time, I wasn't into Bigfoot. I wasn't into any of the Sasquatch. I mean, I would have found it interesting, but I wasn't a proactive thing.
Okay.
So this was just the start of the craziness as far as Bigfoot phenomena, light phenomena is concerned, and also UFOs. So.
Yes. Okay, so after this, was this, and you had this experience there, is this when you moved to,
back to New Zealand?
Yeah, where did you go after this? I mean, were you still continuing to do your UFO work there, or is this when you moved out of the U.S.?
Well, I remained in the U.S. for about 2 years after that incident. I had joined Las Vegas UFO hunters. I went out quite regularly sky watching, went to conventions. I took a big interest in reporter George Knapp and his work. So I was looking for answers, particularly with the UFO subject. And I went back. I had already was planning to head back to New Zealand. My children that I was raising there were adults, almost adults at that point when I left America to head back to New Zealand.
Yeah, and I know that you had a horrific encounter with getting your children because, right? I mean, didn't you? Because of your history of doing this kind of work to make you look crazy? Didn't they do that?
Yes. A number of things happened when I returned to New Zealand. Basically, I went through hell.
Yes.
Not only was this the paranormal stuff going on, but I had family turn against me. My marriage broke up. My health, I nearly died. I had a shadow being race up to save my life.
Wow.
Basically, I had my research was used against me in the courtroom, particularly my work on Bigfoot. Now,
okay.
stuff happened.
Wait a second.
Didn't stop in America.
Wait a second. Okay, you said that you had a shadow being come down and do what? Heal you?
I nearly died. I had a medication interaction. I tore one of my vertebrae in my back, and I was on very powerful pain med. at the time, and I accidentally took two at the same time, two different ones that should have killed me, and the ambulance people were surprised I was still alive after that. But basically, what happened is one of these shadow beings. I've had many encounters with different kinds of beings, but I basically a shadow being came right up to me, shoved something into my heart area. I believe that was some sort of intervention to save my life.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. Wow. Okay, so I know that you went through hell, and who wouldn't, right? It's kind of like me going to get a job, let's just say, and telling them that I do paranormal extraction.
Right.
I mean, it's like, really? Okay. So that would be quite horrific in that type of event that you were going through. But okay, so you were in New Zealand at this time.
Yes. I returned to New Zealand in 2015. Things got even stranger as I came back to New Zealand. Not only was there a lot of personal drama going on, there was stuff going on. Basically, I lived in the desert. I was in Las Vegas for nearly 20 years, and basically I went into the wilderness of New Zealand. It's very green. It's like rainforest, very steep, treacherous. So I decided, heck, I'm really dying to get into nature. When I got back to New Zealand, I went to a certain area and I found I was getting followed. This is an area away from the public, machete-only kinds of area. There were things like wood knocks, strange voices. I find these strange structures. Now, just as I got back to New Zealand, I was doing a paranormal investigation because some strange stuff was going on in this old apartment that we were living in at the time. I got this very strange message that repeated. It said, "Accept the Bigfoot people, big people," and it repeated. And this was through a radio-shielded spirit box, Sandgene spirit box. I used 2 layers of Faraday radio-blocking material. This very strange message, which I didn't understand at the time, basically said, "Accept the Bigfoot people, big people," and it repeated. And very weird stuff.
Wow. Wow. So that led you kind of in a different direction, obviously.
Yeah. Basically, I was forced to figure out what the heck was going on. Not only the messages, the I.T.C, the instrumental transcommunication or EVPs that I was capturing, but also what was happening out in the wild. This stuff is, and I understand why people wouldn't believe it. It sounds too much.
Actually, it doesn't sound too much to me. I've actually listened to your audio, so to me it doesn't sound strange whatsoever because I really like what you have to say and your philosophy about what happened. But okay, so you went out there and you heard, you felt like someone was following you. This was after you got the message to accept the big people.
The Bigfoot people.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it was. And I didn't know what I got at the time. It was months later, after I reviewed the video, when I did this investigation, that I realized I put 2 and 2 together. So there's something beyond coincidence here. This shows that the Bigfoot people are far more than what we could ever imagine. And at least some of them have abilities to travel interdimensionally, are able to interfere with electronics. You go back to the Skinwalker Ranch study with NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, the scientific team that was involved. There were beings like Bigfoot seen there, the UFOs. Now, I believe that I had been touched by the tale of the Skinwalker, the piggyback phenomenon that affects some people who go to Skinwalker Ranch. It affected even some of the scientists there. Now, whatever happened to me there, I believe, was a follow-on effect from Skinwalker Ranch. Not so much the UFO stuff, but definitely the Bigfoot stuff. I never had anything to do with, as far as I know, any kind of Bigfoot-like experiences ever before.
Right, you weren't into it. You were just out there kind of checking it out, and then felt like someone was following you. What I love about what you said is interdimensional. And, you know, this isn't really talked a lot. I mean, I'm not really totally into, well, my uncle saw Bigfoot, but I've had a lot of weird things like you. What was I going to say is that, interdimensional travel. I absolutely believe you, Mark, that is exactly what is going on with Bigfoot. I absolutely 100% believe that this is what is going on with them. That's why you can't really see them, you can't find their dung, their hair, or, you know, anything about them. I mean, really, they just kind of appear, right? I mean, or they make noises, or they come at you and they make, you throw rocks, things like that.
Well, so some people have seen them say, you know, they think they're very flesh and blood. So there was a number of, let me just say, what happened to me was, it's just basically my jaw about fell off. Basically, one of them from this area, they know who you are when you're in their area, in the wild there. Now this is going to sound, it's going to sound crazy.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But I'm gonna talk about it.
Okay.
This is how I knew that they were beyond flesh and blood. At least some of them. I was sleeping in my bedroom, well, on the verge of sleeping. Something from the astral realm, a very powerful being came right up to me and gave me a date. And he said January 13th, and tapped me on my head and shook my whole bed. Basically inviting me to go out to the area. Stuff had already been happening.
Right.
Now, when I went out there, it was Friday the 13th. It was a full moon, and I do I.T.C and communications as well. They called it the good moon for what reason? One of them ran right past me through this very dense bush. It sounded like an elephant pushing right through, running right past me.
Wow.
The next time I came back, about a dozen trees had been snapped like toothpicks. Now, these are trees that I can't even put my arms around. Some of them are the Nukiao palms, native palms that can withstand hurricane force winds.
Right.
These trees have been snapped down in this very small area. There was no signs of lightning. There was no burn marks. It could have been a microburst. But the coincidence just seemed too strange. Then I was coming across footprints. I was coming across these structures. These beings were calling my name. I was picking up on my GoPro mics, and I knew that I had to record what was going on. I started taking people out with me. It ramped up from there. I knew that I had to. I was going to make a documentary because this was. I already have a paranormal investigation background, so I'm going to use all my gear for this. I knew that I had to use better mics because I'd hear stuff, the GoPro mic wasn't picking it up.
Okay.
So I started using high quality microphones that are designed for recording wildlife, that are shielded from EMF and RF, radio frequencies. So I started to pick up what they're saying. They called me by name. These beings, they're saying things like humans kill Asimos. They're talking about humans. They know that I speak English. They started inviting me out. You heard some of these invitations that I sent you, those audio samples.
Yes.
This stuff is out of this world. There was these bipedal footsteps in these wild areas where there are no public tracks. Very dangerous areas to go into. Basically machete-only kinds of areas. As I dug further into this mystery, I came to discover that there was Bigfoot in my country. I thought, how on earth does Bigfoot get to New Zealand, of all places? Deep down in the South Pacific, we're surrounded by ocean. How did they get here? That is one thing that skeptics ask, which is a very valid question, of course, but they're over in Australia, the Yowies. I found out that the Maori, the native people here in New Zealand, had many names for these Bigfoot. They had legends. They talked about them in their stories, and then And then I found, old newspaper articles, like dating back to the 1900s with gold prospectors. They would get followed, the Maori would warn them about going into the wilderness alone. And as I studied all this, I found links that showed that they were basically the same thing as Sasquatch. The throwing the stones.
Right.
These hairy bipeds with giant footprints. You got people, cryptozoologists from Australia. Rex Gilroy came over with his wife Heather. Came over in the 90s, found these giant fossilized footprints in Coromandel. Now, I decided that I would have to go to this area, this mountain, where the natives talk about. It's Mount Moihau. Basically, it's on the east side of the North Island of New Zealand. It's a place of what they call the Paraperehe, or fairy people, or also the wild men. These half manimal, basically they describe like Bigfoot, giants that could take down any of their warriors that they were deathly afraid of. I went there to shoot B-roll footage. Now, this is funny. I went to Skinwalker Ranch in 2013 to get UFOs on camera. Instead, I have a Bigfoot-like encounter. In 2015, some 2 years later, I go, this was in 2017, a couple of years after I got back to New Zealand. I went there to go for Bigfoot stuff. Basically, I went to film this mountain. Instead, I capture all of these UFOs on camera. I see this giant sphere up by the mountain that faded right before my eyes. I couldn't get my camera out fast enough, but I started just doing handheld footage of the foothills there of that mountain. This is a wild mountain where all this stuff has happened in the past. I caught these smaller saucer-like craft doing around Mark III. I didn't see them, but they got caught by my SLR, my Canon SLR, on video. Basically, one of them was hovering. There's other ones traveling very fast. One of them does a mid-air flip at Mark III, right in front of me, like they're showing off. And one of them went behind the foothills, showing it wasn't insects. These things I measured on Google Earth were moving incredibly fast. So why am I studying Bigfoot and now I'm getting more UFO stuff?
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, I just want to backtrack just a little bit. I watched a show, documentary on Bigfoot, and they had scientists in there of different genres, different types of scientists. So we're talking like the elite, okay, of what's going on, studying Bigfoot, and they were looking at all the evidence, okay, that they had acquired, and they were all separate and sitting at a round table. And the bottom line is that they said, after looking at all of this, all these different scientists agreed that it was a creature, now this is what they're calling it, of unknown origin. Okay, that's telling you something, right? They're not saying, no, it doesn't exist. They're saying it's existing, but it's a creature of unknown origin.
Yes, well, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum from Idaho State University, who's a professor of anthropology, has studied many casts from supposed Bigfoot, giant footprints. He studied the dermal ridges, the gait. He says unequivocally that these things are real.
Right. Well, they are. So you were doing your research on the Sasquatch out there. Now, I know you said they had these strange structures. That's one
Yes.
thing I haven't heard. What was this strange structure?
Well, I came across these very strange pieces of branches with all of the bark stripped off them. They'll be placed in two forks of a tree. Basically like this here, you've got another a tree here, and it's placed between two forks on a tree.
Okay.
This thing was deliberately, and then I came across these like what I call teepees, very basic like teepee structures, ones that look like asterisks, along with footprints right next to them. Now, this is an area there that I go to that most people do not know about. There's no tourists that go through here. This is also where I'd be followed. I'd hear these wood knocks, these trees that were ripped down with immense strength. And then I studied, Sasquatch in Canada and the United States, and found that many of the researchers talk about these giant structures in the wilderness, in areas where you would need, if you wanted to make these structures, you would need heavy machinery. And these are areas that are up on mountains. These are many hours or days away from modern civilization, away from roads and tracks. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So, were you up there?
Well, I've been in.
Yes.
I've been in some kind of remote areas where people don't normally go. This is where stuff happened, and this is why I was thinking this is not a hermit.
Right.
There's something else going on here. What they like to do, I believe the juveniles, they like to mimic humans. Basically, what they did is I come across these little structures. This is an area where the people don't go. This is an area with lots of what's called gorse, cutty grass, very obnoxious weeds. Where you walk around in bare feet, you're going to get cut up.
Right.
The New Zealand wilderness is very thick and treacherous. I've been into the wilderness in America. This is not like that. This is very hard to get through.
Right.
But anyway, I found like they would use all these cinder blocks. Now cinder blocks that are used to make houses and buildings. They would put like 40 of these up in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. How would they get cinder blocks?
Well,
I mean, that's crazy.
Well, there'll be these 40 cinder blocks, and the next time I came back, all of them were gone except for one.
Okay,
they took them out, and this is an area where I'm getting the footprints. This
Right.
is where I'm getting the wood knocks. This is where I'm getting approached. The voices calling my name. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I was like, how could logically, you would need a helicopter to pull these things out of that area. It just doesn't make any, I couldn't find a rational reason for how this happened. I mean, when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, there's something very strange going on.
Right. Okay. So you decided that this was Bigfoot because of it's very similar to other people's experiences, and you actually experienced what they had experienced. However, I haven't heard of anything about building structures. I mean, that's just bizarre.
Yeah, there's different theories as to what they may be, whether there's directional indicators, or I know the Native Americans would use trees to indicate like hunting grounds and stuff, but there's these strange like loops, like trees pulled bent right over and anchored with something on the ground. These things mean something. And so basically, now the reason why I know Sasquatch is basically because I pick up EVP saying, Mark, you've had a Bigfoot encounter. I pick up electronic voice phenomena, ghosts. They're basically talking about what's going on.
Right.
And you've heard that recording. I get these very strange voices. About 2 months ago, I picked up this very strange howling and these very deep voices coming from the mountains, remote mountains by me. I went out there, it was a full moon, it was nighttime, in this area where people aren't allowed to go because of what's called curry tree dieback disease. People are not allowed to just wander around in certain areas of the wilderness because of this disease.
Oh my God.
So what are you
doing? You want to kill yourself?
I was right on the edge. I was right on the edge of the wilderness, so I could hear. Some of them they were coming right up next to me. I could hear these bipedal footsteps. I could hear the stone clacks, the snaps, the voices. They were giving me messages. Some of them were saying like, "Mark, we love you." Amazing stuff. This stuff goes beyond reasonable doubt. I mean, I've crossed the threshold here. Well, I realised that these beings are real. It not only dealt with the Bigfoot, but also deals with UFOs. I started capturing more craft flying over the area. There's highly reflective craft that would fly right low, and these highly reflective craft would pick up all the forest canopy. And they were moving like the camera would barely capture them. They started talking about UFOs. They started talking about there's the craft, go to it. They were talking about humans. I mean, this stuff, I mean, it goes beyond hikers. It goes beyond normal things. They were saying things that you wouldn't that weren't permitted on the radio, some of the things that we're saying.
Wow. Okay, so did you ever actually see one?
When you say one, you mean a UFO or a Bigfoot?
Well, I know you've seen UFOs. I mean, that's very apparent.
Yeah.
But a Bigfoot, or anything like it?
A face-to-face, I would say no, but I've had stuff come very close to me, like like bipedal footsteps.
Right.
Like they're watching me from the bush. I mean, only like 15 feet away.
Right.
So, and then I was getting these stone clacks. Now, what kind of animal is going to pick up stones and clack them?
Right.
And then throwing stones right next to me.
Right.
And that's one of the things associated with Bigfoot is stone throwing, the wood knocks. They're very strange. Now, you probably heard some of the voices. Some of them are very deep.
I noticed that. Didn't sound like any type of animal to me.
Yeah, very weird stuff. Basically, one of the EVPs that said Marc Bigfoot singing, they were actually commenting on what was going on. So I'm picking up electronic voice phenomena with these shielded microphones. Some skeptics listen to it and say, oh, you're picking up something from the Sci-Fi Channel or, whatever. But these mics are shielded from EMF. I'm not picking up the ISS. I'm not picking up, commercials from, XYZ radio station. This is something truly anomalous that's going on. Basically, they told me I was their friend. I would gift them or take things to them as well. They would say, they would invite me out. They'd say, thank you for coming, Marc. Very strange voice. These voices, you could go on my YouTube channel, Mountain of Entities, just type that into the search bar. But I have samples of hundreds into thousands of these personalized messages that I picked up, my microphones picked up. Many of them I can actually hear. I can hear live, so it's not just something that's getting picked up unawares. I am fairly sensitive to, so I think sometimes they can pull you into them. They can actually touch you spiritually. Now, I've had encounters with people who've passed on as well. I've experienced all kinds of stuff. So I think I've been slowly opened up over time, but I never thought that I would be, younger. When I was younger, I never thought I was going to be a Bigfoot research or anything like that. I mean, I can't believe what I'm doing, and I can't believe what's happening. It's like something out of a movie upon a movie upon a movie upon another movie.
Right.
It's so unreal. But I'm recording what's going on. It's telling me that Marc is not experiencing psychosis or bipolar disorder. What is happening is actually real and is going on. They are highly aware of us. They're acutely aware of humans in the area. Basically, they talk about craft. They talk about, some of these beings talk about craft as well, UFOs. They'll tell me something flies right by. They'll say, Marc, there's a UFO, quick. Look, there's a UFO. My mics will pick up what they're saying.
Right.
So they're talking about these spaceships. They'll talk about spaceships. They know all about us. They know all about what we call things. They know about our way of life. They can basically, look, us as humans, we can astral travel. We can leave our bodies and we can travel to a location. I believe that either they're changing a dimension, they're changing vibrational, frequency or something, but somehow they're able to check us out.
Right.
And I've talked to other people here in my country. Now, this is a extremely taboo subject to talk about. I know it's taboo anyway, but here I've lost family as a result of basically my father was a skeptic. Basically said, I'll disown you if you don't stop looking into the subject.
Oh my God.
Basically, he died last year, and I got this very strange message from someone that said, Mark, I am wiser. About 2 days after he died, I get this very strange message, and then I'm getting messages saying, Mark, it's me, right after he died. Strange, paranormal stuff would happen. The smoke alarm would go off by itself. The typical haunting. So there's a lot of stuff that's been happening. This is ongoing. And so basically with my film, I've captured these amazing howls that have, I've interviewed a park ranger here in New Zealand who's heard the same thing. He said, these things are not cattle. I know exactly what the area you're talking about. These are not cattle. I've heard the same thing. He said he's been followed. I've talked to former soldiers who've been chased out of the wilderness by something bipedal that could shake trees with immense strength. I've talked to skeptics, even people who have PTSD as a result of their encounter, people who refuse to believe what they've had happen, but they're too afraid to go back into the wilderness as a result of their encounter. I've talked to people who've had Bigfoot encounters, actually seen them here. I've talked to people who work with the Department of Conservation who've seen them on the job, and they've come out and basically told me. So since I've been researching all this, I've had all these people. Now, most people will not talk about it. They will not come on camera, but so many of the testimonies I've got have been from people who have seen them, and their whole life has been turned upside down, just as mine has.
Wow, okay, so would you call yourself a psychic, clairvoyant? I mean, because you're talking about all of this too, that you have these abilities. So what would you classify yourself as?
I'm an empath,
okay.
And I've had a lot of experiences with people who have passed on, with relatives that I didn't know about. And they actually, one of them, a great-great-grandfather, who I never knew about, showed me a picture of himself in a dream state. The next day, I get a very strange message from my father when he was still alive, a skeptic, in quotations. I get an email. Attached to that email was a picture of the man that I saw in the dream who came to me.
Wow.
It was the same person. My jaw about fell off. So they can work through skeptics, they can work through anyone, and you might even not know it. You might not know that you're answering someone else's prayer or whatever. You're giving rationalization to, or validation, should I say, to someone's encounter. So they can do that. Your loved ones can come and visit you in a dream state. They can come and see you when you're lying in bed. So I am fairly sensitive. So I use that in what I do. It's helped me to be very successful.
Well, obviously. So you're continuing right now your research on this. Obviously. And that is your primary purpose at this moment in time.
Yes, I want to understand what's going on. What is this earth about? Why are we here? One of the messages that I got says, need an extra earth for the future. They even talk about taking sperm. They say things that are highly unusual that people wouldn't normally say in this real world. The messages that are amazing. Basically, to say we protect you. I had some experiences when I nearly died. When I was in the hospital, I saw one of the Bigfoot faces. It was a third eye, what I'd call a third eye chakra thing.
Yeah.
I know people poo-poo this, but you can actually pick up when you're sensitive. You can pick up anything. You can pick up people who have passed on. You can pick up on other events that you're not privy to.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I just was I forgot about you're doing this so perfectly. Your interview today about talking about everything that you talked about. Oh, and there goes off a buzzer. We never know what's going to happen here. Okay. Do you think that these beings, okay, let's just say Bigfoot, is from another planet, similar to aliens, but just a different race?
Well, I suspect that they may be the missing link, and also I suspect that we're the ones that have been genetically modified. They are perfectly built for survival in the wilderness. We aren't. They can go places where we can't. The very strange fact that I've got UFOs flying in these areas where all this stuff is going on leads me to believe, I strongly believe, that they are connected with UFOs. UFO Bigfoot researcher Stan Gordon, who wrote books on the UFO Bigfoot connection, has also talked about this over the United States, over in Pennsylvania in 1973. He talked about people having these UFO sightings, not only the UFO sightings, but they're seeing these giants coming off these craft, Bigfoot-like creatures coming on these craft or coming off the craft, seemingly bulletproof. Some people fired at them point-blank range. There's been stories, and some of the natives here, the Maori, have talked about shooting these beings nearly point-blank, having no effect at them. So there's something else going on, and this leads back to Skinwalker Ranch. What's going on over there too? I believe it is all connected. I believe that I wrote a paper on near-death experiences. I believe that these beings can reach out to those who have passed on. There's a metaverse. There's a spiritual metaverse that surrounds all of us. We can connect to other beings. We can have alien-type beings come to us.
Sure.
We can have. When we die, I believe that our appearance changes. They have talked about reincarnation subjects to me. Mm-hmm. I have a strong connection to one of these people from this other civilization, this female. She's given me her names many times. Basically, I get a lot of activity when I go out to the wilderness. It's affected other people. It's not just Mark. It's not just Mark talking about it. They've actually followed people home that they've gone out with me. I tend not to take people, but when I've taken people, they've heard the voices right next to them. They've been followed home. They've had something very big hit the side of their house at like 1 o'clock in the morning, second level. I've had people go out with me. We found the footprints, the structures, hearing the voices, seeing strange things in the sky as well. I was jaw dropping.
Right. Well, yeah, it is. What have you done any casting of any of the feet?
Back in the early days, I did do some. Basically, in New Zealand wilderness, there's a lot of deadfall from the trees. It's very hard to find footprints unless you're in a suitable area. Basically, the areas that have creeks, where there's open dirt patches, those are like the best places. I did start doing casting, but see, when I'm going out there, I've got a machete, I've got all this camera gear on me. I decided to actually try to record the intelligence that was going on, the voices that were calling my name. They would say, "Come up." They'd also like to mimic what I say. You would say tree, and they'd say tree, and these very deep voices. They'd yell it out. My camera mics would pick it up. It's really bizarre. I'd say use a word that was very unique. One of the words for Bigfoot is the Mariro, the Maori word. Well, I was doing a poem in this wild area. I said the word Mariro. They repeated it after me. I caught it. It got caught on the camera. This stuff is just, to me, it goes beyond just coincidence.
Well, absolutely. What you were telling me, or we talked about, is that for me, and I'm not like a Bigfoot, reading all the books and just mesmerized by it at all. But your experience, I actually have not heard anything like this. I haven't heard anything like this.
I wondered, well, there are people that have interdimensional kinds of encounters. Things like Bigfoot would appear and disappear. There's like giant walls, bulletproof walls would appear and seemingly disappear. What happened over at Skinwalker Ranch. Sometimes people see Bigfoot-like beings and see them just go transparent or completely disappear. Now, they're extremely stealthy, yes. Some people will say they're just flesh and blood, and how dare you say they're interdimensional, but there are aspects. I was on a certain host show that runs some TV shows on Bigfoot. Basically, they tend to poo-poo. They kind of made fun of the paranormal aspect when I brought up the paranormal aspect. Basically, I was approached by something in one of the areas. I could not see what it was. Basically, I had something walk right up to me. I couldn't see what it was. I heard the footsteps. Pam McElby was a documentary that came out on the Missing 411, the David Pilates series on The Hunted. Basically, Pam McElby was up on a deer stand, and she reported seeing something that was like a predator, semi-transparent. Well, there is stuff that is not easily explained that happens like that.
Right.
So I've experienced stuff that's completely invisible, where you can't even see them.
Well,
now I have heard,
what I just love about you is that you're talking about things that, a lot of these shows and stuff, they just kind of go up, they try to catch them, that's about it. But you're talking about so many other different things that go along with this that, like you said, people would think you're crazy because you're hearing these things. But this is a whole different type of interview that we're having that doesn't really have anything to do with just being out with the camera looking for Bigfoot. You know what I mean? And
right.
They put those things on the trees, to try to get audio. They go out there and put on, these things at trees at night and this and that. But I actually haven't heard anyone that has a story like yours, ever.
Yeah. Oh, the nice thing is I actually have evidence of what's going on.
Yes.
Some skeptics like that Bigfoot message. I had one astronomer say, "Oh, that's just autopareidolia." Now, pareidolia is basically the brain falsely interpreting a pattern.
Yes.
Now, this message is repeated, and it's a very complicated sentence that gets repeated.
Right.
Now, the messages that came right before that were things that you couldn't say on the radio. This is beyond coincidence.
Right.
And basically, I called them out and said, how can you call yourself a scientist? A scientist is supposed to approach things with an open mind. How can you say something false when you don't know that? What I say is just put it in a box. If you don't understand it, go investigate it. Go.
Right.
But with not only an open mind, but an open heart. These beings are highly empathic. They pick up your intention, what you're doing up there. They pick up if you're wearing cameras. They know what your intention is. I believe that they can see your auric field as well. There's a spiritual aspect to this. It's not just all. In fact, I think the more scientific you are about it, the less likely you are to make a connection with them.
Well, absolutely. Like I said again, this is the first time I've heard this, but I mean, I get it. It makes sense to me after you and I talk, especially the interdimensional thing. I mean, I've always thought that, even though I never really heard it before. And I just found your story just absolutely fascinating. Now, if they want to know more, okay, because you went really quick through where you're at on YouTube. What is the name of it?
Yeah, so just type in Mountain of Entities into YouTube, and it will come up with my channel. I also have a blog, mountainofentities.com. You can go through my blog too.
Okay.
But I recommend for anyone that wants to hear these communications, go to my YouTube channel. Now, I'm working on a documentary in the background, so I actually leak a little bit of what's going on in my YouTube videos as well. It's just a small channel, but I actually reveal some of what's going on. There's video footage. there's these intelligent communications. Some of them saying my name, you can actually hear in the videos. So
Right.
I invite people to go and hear my podcasts, and you can hear these very strange, unusual voices.
Right. Well, what I'm hoping that happens to you is you actually see one. I mean, I think that's coming, absolutely for you. And if you do, I want you to contact me ASAP.
Yeah. Well, I'm all game. I'm all game, and I think that there's a fair aspect to doing this because you don't know if you're going to get abducted. I mean, there's
Right.
they talk about craft. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I
Right.
mean, I could just become a missing 411. But that never harmed me. I've been out there by myself in the middle of the night. Been approached. I could have easily been taken.
Oh, yeah. And you're by yourself, and none of this scares you at all anymore, or are you just because you think for the voices the voices that you've gotten have been so more on a spiritual basis, or the communication that you're not as afraid?
They basically say something about saving me. So they're actually all about love. It's not monster kind of stuff. Now there are all kinds of beings, but these guys, I have been around some very bad entities in the past. Like growing up, and I've been attacked by entities. So I am a sensitive. I can pick up on anything very bad, and I don't get that from them. Not these beings.
Well, I just did a show with somebody about a UFO experience, and it was not about being abducted and probed up the butt and all this stuff. It was actually a very, very good experience, and different types of beings that are up there. It was actually very, very good and very blew my mind away. I actually 100% believe in it, but there are different types of species up there, and she speaks about the cat people, and I mean I can just go on and on and on, but it sounds to me that could be part of it, is that they are a different species of a UFO type based or alien, different type of race. That's what it sounds like to me, Mark.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Not just, I'm sorry, but not just some big gigantic, I mean, let's just go into this for a second. Not just some big gigantic monkey running around, okay? I mean, that's what you see in these shows. And let's go back to, because I did interview on the original film that was done in black and white of the walking of the Bigfoot.
Patterson.
Okay, the Patterson or something like that.
The Patterson Gibbon film, yes.
Yeah, and I did actually did a interview with the guy that was actually there, and he was really a debunker, but he was saying that those. And everyone can just say, oh, you're full of shit, or send terrible messages to me. But that was a whole setup. That was what that video is not real. And I talked to someone on the set that was there, very reputable, has books out, does, I mean, amazing stuff. He's a real big debunker. But, so, do you believe that video is real?
I believe so. No suit has been produced. Nothing has ever come forth. There have been people who have claimed to be the Paddy Bigfoot, but you can actually see these muscles, in the hair of this giant creature. Gilman said he was trying to keep up with this being. And he couldn't. I mean, even just with his strides, he couldn't keep up with it. And, there's a lot of ridicule when you come out with something like this. And I believe that film is authentic. There have been a number of people that have seen them around the world. It's not just in America. You've got Australia, you've got China, the Urim, You've got the Almasties over in the Urals. You've got the Yowies over in Australia. You've got the Solomon Islands. You've got these beings are around the world, and there's many different names for them.
Wow, okay. All right, yeah, well, when I listen to his, debunkers are debunkers, they're debunkers. Anyways, I'm not so sure about that video after I talked to him, but listening to you and your whole thought process on this, as well as your own experience, this is, absolutely amazing stuff. I love what you have to say. I love that you're coming out of the closet and speaking about things that people really haven't spoken about in other Sasquatch films.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to be a really big hit for you as far as doing a documentary on it, because I haven't seen anything like it or heard anything like it.
Well, I've got footage of these craft. I have some pretty jaw-dropping footage of these craft, along with some of the very strange voices, the things taking place, the very deep, guttural, these voice boxes that are able to make sounds that human vocals cannot replicate. Very, very deep, very powerful beings. It's astounding. That's all I have to say. I think people have to know about it, and there's a connection between the. I believe that they may have been placed here from craft.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. After I've done a lot of, UFO interviews, and especially with the one I just did, I absolutely 100% believe that. So, is there anything else that you would like to say today about this?
Well, for anyone that really wants to know the truth, come on my channel, have a listen to these voices that call my name, and think, well, what are the chances of them getting your name right? They talk about your father just before he was about to die, and all these messages that I picked up. This is beyond happenstance, and I've got some very interesting interviews with people from the government and from people who've had sightings themselves. So please come onto my channel, subscribe, and I'm in the editing phase of the documentary.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, and I love the fact that we called it Down the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah,
because
it's very befitting.
Yeah, it's very fitting to this, and I really appreciate you coming on today. And of course, I'll put down where to find you, and I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this, because this is actually very, very unusual, different, crazy, kind of nutty stuff that most people are going to think it is, but I don't. So there you have it. So yes. I just wanted to say I really appreciate you coming on today, and I hope everybody loved this show, and if you don't, too bad. We're going to say bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.